It was 1997, and I was just starting seminary. Now, some people like to do things slowly and to just ease their way into them, but my wife and I decided that we would go whole hog. We did all the high stress things all at once. We got married. Well, she had just graduated from college. I'd left my job, and when we moved away, we moved from Chicago to Kentucky. Here we were living in this duplex, and it was government subsidized, but we even had to have my dad guarantee that he would give us money if we didn't have any money to pay our rent, because we didn't really have any source of income at this point. To say things were tight, that would be kind of an understatement. You know, like every newlywed couple, we needed a date night. Our date night consisted of us going to Walmart and window shopping. And then we go across the street to the Taco Bell, where we would share their nachos platter. Yeah, the last of the big, wild, crazy, romantic dates, huh? Now, I grew up knowing that I was supposed to tithe. I knew that God had asked for a portion of my money, and even when I was little and got 10 cents a week for my allowance, I would put that penny in the offering plate. But as we were newlyweds and we didn't have any money, there were a lot of ways that we would kind of justify not tithing, not giving. I mean, after all, we were already in the red. Where was this tithe money going to come from? And then I would say, well, we're giving all this money to the seminary, and the seminary is doing great things for God, and we can count that as our tithe, can't we? Well, in the midst of this, our church began a building program. And you might be starting to sigh and say, oh no, a building program, a stewardship program. They're going to ask for money. And yes, they did, but it was really interesting the way they did it, and I felt like it was really God-led. And so my wife and I decided we need to give to this building program. Our pastor had impressed upon us that he wasn't asking for equal gifts. Everyone couldn't give the same amount, but he was asking, or rather God was asking, for equal sacrifices. And so we got together and started looking at our finances and said, you know what, we're already in the red, but if God wants it from us, then God will provide it, won't he? And as we were discussing that, we realized, wait a minute, if we're going to be giving to this building program, our pastor told us this giving was supposed to be above and beyond our regular gifts. We're not giving normally anyway. So we decided, you know what, we're already in the red. Why not just start out with a clean slate? We'll go with a tithe. And then that gift for the building program will be above and beyond. And if God wants it to happen, God will do it. This is when we really first began to trust God with our finances. And you know what we found out? That as we trusted God with our finances, he really came through for us. For example, one night we were crying over where was the rent money going to come from. It's due tomorrow and we don't have the money. That next day, that tomorrow, after choir practice, our choir director came up to me and said, my wife and I were praying and we feel like God wants you to have this. This isn't a loan, it's a gift from us. And he handed me a check for exactly the amount that we needed to pay the rent. Another time I went to my seminary post office box to pick up my mail, and in there was an anonymous letter. And it said, take your wife out to eat. And in it was a $50 bill. Let me tell you, $50 can buy a lot of nachos at Taco Bell. In Luke 12:34, Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Before that, I was trusting myself with my money, but I wasn't trusting God with it. And trusting God with my money is one of the best decisions I've ever made. It has reminded me that my heart is with God, and he is my treasure, and he provides for me. He has continued to provide for me and my family every day. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made.